Okay, have you ever thought about your body as like the most incredible building ever made? Seriously. It's got a frame, it's got wiring, plumbing, even self-repairing walls. But what's it actually built from? What are the nuts and bolts, the bricks and mortar of you? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. We're going to take an architectural tour of the human body, starting with its most fundamental building blocks, tissues. I mean, really think about it for a second. What are you made of? And I mean beyond the obvious stuff like bones and organs. If we could just shrink down, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids style, and zoom way, way in, what would we see? Well, we'd find these amazing microscopic communities of cells, all working together in perfect harmony. They're the literal fabric of our existence. All right, so here's the plan for our tour. First, we'll check out the blueprint. That's histology. Then we'll get into the body's protective shield, epithelium, and see how it's classified. After that, we'll stop by the body's tiny factories, the glandular tissues. We'll take a quick peek at the connective tissue that holds it all together, and wrap up with why any of this stuff is so important in the first place. Okay, let's start at the beginning, the blueprint. Before we can really get what the building's about, we've got to look at the architect's plans, right? And that's where histology comes in. It's basically the science of studying tissues under a microscope. So if we're sticking with our building analogy, histology is the set of super detailed architectural drawings for every single part of the body. These blueprints show exactly how every tiny piece is supposed to fit together and what it's supposed to do. Honestly, it's the foundation for understanding pretty much everything, how the body works when it's healthy and what's gone wrong when it's not. So, what are these blueprints actually for? They're for tissues. And a tissue is really just a group of similar cells that have teamed up to do a specific job. In our building, the tissues are the building materials. They're the bricks, the wires, the insulation, the drywall, you name it. They're the stuff we're built from. And here's the wild part. You'd think a structure as complex as the human body would need hundreds of different materials, right? Nope. It's all built from just 4 basic types of tissue. That's it. You've got connective tissue holding things together, muscle tissue for movement, and nervous tissue for sending messages. But today, we're zeroing in on that first one, epithelial tissue. This is the stuff that covers and lines just about everything. All right, time to meet our star player for today, the protective shield, also known as epithelium. Just imagine one single material that's tough enough to protect you from the outside world, smart enough to control what gets in and out, and versatile enough to form tiny little factories. It sounds like science fiction, but that's epithelium for you. You know, the easiest way to picture epithelium is to think of it as tile, like the tile in your bathroom. It's made up of these sheets of cells that are packed together super tightly, shoulder to shoulder. This tiling covers your entire outer surface, your skin, and it also lines every single internal cavity and tube you have. We're talking your entire digestive tract, your blood vessels, all of it. It's the ultimate gatekeeper. So what makes this stuff so special? Well, it has a few key features. First, like we said, the cells form these continuous sheets, all snugged up against each other. It's also avascular, which is a fancy way of saying it doesn't have its own blood vessels. Kind of weird, right? It actually gets all its nutrients from the tissue layer right below it. It also has what we call polarity, meaning there's a definite top and a bottom to the sheet of cells. And maybe most importantly, this stuff is an absolute champion at regenerating. It's constantly repairing itself, which makes sense for a tissue that's always facing wear and tear. So with those characteristics, what does epithelium actually do all day? Well, a few big things. As you can see, job number 1, making up the biggest chunk, is protection. It's our first line of defense. But it's not just a wall. It's also huge in secretion. That's releasing stuff like sweat or enzymes. It's also in charge of controlling permeability, basically being the bouncer at the club, deciding what gets in and what stays out. And in some places, it's even responsible for sensation. Okay, so if we're calling epithelium epithelial, you know there's got to be different kinds, right? You've got your big floor tiles, your small mosaic tiles. It's the same here. And luckily for us, biologists came up with a super simple system to classify them. It all comes down to just 2 things: how many layers there are and what shape the cells are. First up, layers. This one's easy. If you've got just one single layer of cells, we call it simple. Think about it, a single thin layer is going to be perfect for places where you need things to pass through quickly, like for absorbing nutrients or exchanging gases. On the other hand, if you've got 2 or more layers stacked on top of each other, that's called stratified, and its purpose is pretty obvious: protection. The more layers you have, the tougher the barrier is against stuff like scrapes and abrasion. Okay, part 2 of the formula is cell shape. And again, we keep it simple. There are really only three basic shapes to worry about. First, you have squamous cells, which are flat and scale-like. The fried egg analogy is perfect. Then you have cuboidal cells, which are, well, cube-shaped, like little sugar cubes. And finally, columnar cells, which are tall and skinny, just like a column. And just like with the layers, each shape is designed for a different job. And here is the coolest part. You just put those two pieces of information together to get the full name of the tissue. That's it. It's literally a formula. Number of layers plus the cell shape gives you the name. So if you have a single layer of flat fried egg cells, boom, you've got simple squamous epithelium. See? You're already talking the talk. Let's look at a few real-world examples so this really clicks. In your lungs, where you need oxygen and CO2 to move back and forth super fast, what do you find? Simple squamous, a single flat layer. Makes sense, right? Now, what about your skin, which takes a beating every day? That's got to be tough, so it's made of stratified squamous, lots of protective layers. And then you have somewhere like your bladder, which needs to stretch. It uses a really cool type called transitional epithelium, where the cells can literally change their shape. It's always about the design perfectly matching the job.
Okay, but wait, there's a twist. Not all epithelial tissue is content just being a cover or a liner. Some of it actually folds inward, diving down into the deeper layers of the body to form these amazing little production centers. And we call this glandular tissue. And these factories come in two main flavors. You've got your exocrine glands, which use a little tube called a duct to send their product out onto a surface. Think sweat glands or salivary glands. Then you have the endocrine glands. These guys are the rebels. They're ductless. They just dump their products, which we call hormones, straight into the bloodstream and let them travel all over the body. Now, focusing on those exocrine glands for a sec, they don't all make the same stuff. Some make serous secretions, which is a thin, watery fluid. It's often full of enzymes, like the stuff that helps you digest your food. Then you have mucus secretions. This is the thick, viscous, kind of slimy stuff called mucin. Its job is all about lubrication and protection. And yeah, some glands are overachievers and make a little bit of both. You know, one of the most fascinating things is how these glands release their products. There are three main ways. First is merocrine secretion. This is the neat and tidy method. The cell just releases its product without losing any part of itself. Then it gets a little more intense with apocrine secretion. Here, the top little chunk of the cell actually pinches off and goes along with the product. And then you've got holocrine secretion. This is the kamikaze method. The entire cell fills up with its product and then completely disintegrates, sacrificing itself to get the job done. Wild, right? So we've covered the walls and the factories of our building, but what about the steel frame, the foundation? What holds this whole structure up? Well, for that, we need to take a quick peek at our next category, connective tissue. And man, is this stuff diverse. When we say connective tissue, we're talking about a huge range of materials. We're talking about everything from solid bone to flexible cartilage, squishy fat, and even liquid blood. Yep, blood is a connective tissue. But they all share one main job: to support, connect, and bind all the other tissues together. It really is the body's scaffolding, glue, and packing material all in one. All right, we've been deep in the weeds looking at all this microscopic stuff. And you might be thinking, okay, that's cool, but so what? Why does this actually matter? Let's zoom out and connect all these dots. Here's the bottom line. Understanding tissues is, without a doubt, the foundation of all modern medicine. You simply cannot understand how an organ, like your liver or your heart, works if you don't understand the tissues it's made from. And more importantly, you can't figure out what's wrong with it when it's sick. For a doctor or a scientist to spot a disease, they first have to know exactly what healthy tissue looks like under a microscope. So this isn't just some boring biology lesson, it's literally the basis for how we fight disease. When you really think about it, the entire story of life, from a single cell all the way up to you and me, it's all written in these tissues. How we move, how we think, how we heal, it all comes down to the incredible, intricate architecture of these tiny cellular communities. It's a pretty mind-blowing reminder of the amazing complexity that's happening inside us at every single moment.